Shalom, how's everyone doing? Today's day 16 of the Kitzur Shulchan, and we're learning Siman Seif test. So the Kitzur says, "Ilu dvarim tzrichin netilas yadayim b'mayim." These are the following things that one has to wash his hands with water after he does. Hakomen amita, somebody who gets out of bed. V'hayotzim misakisim misamerchatz, somebody who leaves the bathroom or leaves the bathhouse. V'hanotel tziparnav, somebody who cuts his nail. V'hamegalech sarosav, somebody who cuts his hair. V'acholitz v'nalav, somebody who takes off his shoes. V'hameshamish mitaso, somebody who has tashmish shemita with his wife. V'hanogea b'china, somebody who touches a louse. V'hamachlas begadav, afilu lo naga b'china, even if somebody tries to take lice out of his garment, even if he doesn't touch one, that also is mechayiv and atila. V'achofei rosho, somebody who scratches his head. V'hanogea b'gufa b'makomos mechusim, somebody who touches the covered part of his body. V'hayotzim v'sakvara, somebody who leaves the cemetery. V'hamalave'etz ha'meis or shenichnas b'o'al ha'meis, somebody who either accompanies a dead person or goes to the same tent as a mace. V'hamakiz dam, or somebody who undergoes a bloodletting. Okay, to understand the Seif, we have to understand something. That in halacha, there are only two times we require somebody to wash his hands. One time is, for example, if his hands just aren't clean, right? As we've been discussing previously, like when somebody goes to sleep at night, there's a chazak, he touches a covered part of his body, right? We assume covered parts of the body are filled with sweat, and your hands are physically not clean. So therefore, after you touch something physically not clean, there's a chiyuv to wash your hands. That is one time where we make somebody chayav to wash his hands. But then there's another time. There's another time where we look at it and we look, seemingly this guy's hands are physically clean, but yet we say that there's this ruach ra. We say like there's this thing that's not clean that we can't tell. It's like spiritually not clean, and that's also chayav for one to wash his hands. For example, we said in the morning, right? In the morning, obviously we wash our hands, one, to make our hands physically clean, and second, even if it wasn't for that, we'd wash our hands anyway, because there's this spiritual uncleanliness that we have to get off. But as the Shari Truba points out in Sif Kanchof, there's a difference whether we make you wash your hands because of ruach ra or because of just physically clean hands. For example, if you go through the list, there are some things on this list that the Kitzur says that it's very obvious that it's just to have clean hands. For example, he says somebody who scratches his head. Why? Because there's an assumption when you scratch your head, a person's head is filled with sweat, so therefore when you scratch it, your hands are physically not clean. Right? That's something clear that it's basically just done because of clean hands, not because of something that we could physically see, not because of like the spiritual uncleanliness. But then we have something like megalayach sarosav, cutting your hair. Like even if somebody cuts your hair for you, you don't touch your hair, nothing. There still is a chiv netila. So obviously that's because of ruach ra, that there's this some type of spiritual impurity that comes upon somebody when he gets a haircut. But the Shari Tshuva says there's a difference in halacha between these types of washing. For example, when it comes to just, let's say like scratching your head, that all you need there is nikayon ba'alma, right? You just have to, you physically have your hands dirty. You have to now get them clean, right? It could be done through water, but it could be done through other things. You could just wipe your hands in a cloth, use hand sanitizer. Maybe you could really do anything. But when it comes to, for example, let's say megalech sarosav, cutting your hair, that is a ruach ra concern. Therefore, it's more serious. So you would need water. Okay. So, but let's within the ruach ra concern, we're saying you need water, but is it as chamor? Is it as serious of a ruach ra as we have in the morning? Right? When somebody gets up in the morning, we say he has a really serious ruach ra on him. And in order to get rid of that ruach ra, water is not enough. You have to pour the water on your hand 3 times. So the question really is, does that apply to other things that have to do with the ruach ra? So if you look at the Mishnah says no. The Mishnah says it happens to be in the morning. There's a very serious ruach ra, and that requires 3 times. But even though the other things on the list that are ruach ra related, that wouldn't require 3 times. It would just require water. But let's discuss some of the things on the list. Obviously, we have the first thing, getting up for bed. That's what we've been discussing until now. And then we have an interesting thing, somebody who leaves a bathroom. So the question is, why does one wash his hands after he leaves the bathroom? So seemingly it's because, after you go to the bathroom, your hands are physically not clean. You touched the covered part of the body. You touched the unclean part of the body. So obviously you have to wash your hands. But the Mishnah says no. You have to look very careful at the halacha. The halacha is somebody who leaves the bathroom. And the Mishnah Berurah is medayik, and he says this is really coming from the Zohar. Even if you go to the bathroom and you don't even use the bathroom, you just walk in there. You walk in there and you walk out. There's this ruach ra in your hand, so it's really a ruach ra halacha about going to the bathroom. And just to prove this point, if you look in the Kaf HaChaim says that, let's say somebody uses the bathroom in the field. It's not really a bathroom, it's just a field. There is no ruach ra there. So technically, as we've been saying, you don't even need water if there's no ruach ra. You could just wipe your hands in something. As opposed to if somebody uses the bathroom, then there's a ruach ra concern, and one would need water. Do you have to wash your hands 3 times? So the Mishnah Berurah doesn't think so, because he says only in the morning you need 3 times. But he does quote a shita, the Heichal HaKodesh, that holds you do need 3 times, because he says it is a very chamor ruach ra, just like we have in the morning. So there's a halacha that if you walk into a bathroom and you walk out, you have a chiyuv netila. So all the poskim bizmaninu are dealing with the following question. Let's say somebody uses the bathroom, okay. He washes his hands by the sink in the bathroom, and then he leaves. So the poskim say, wait a second. There's a halacha that whenever you leave a bathroom, you have to wash your hands. So what do? You went to the bathroom, you washed in the sink in the bathroom, and then you left the bathroom. So now you're in a matzav of hayotzi beis hakiseh. Maybe you should have to wash your hands again. So, mamish, all the poskim bizmaninu talk about this. We're gonna say 2 reasons why some want to be makel, and we'll see. Reason number 1, they say that what's this whole idea? That basically a bathroom is a place of ruach ra. There's a ruach ra on you. You leave, you have to wash your hands. There's a concept in the Gemara Maseches Brachos that talks about something called the basic kisi de parsai. That there was something that was a bathroom, but it was like a very lenient type of bathroom. It was like a very clean type of bathroom, and it really didn't have a din of a bathroom. What was basic kisi de parsai? Basically, what it was, people would go to the bathroom, and it wouldn't linger there. Like they'd use the bathroom and go straight down, and it would go straight through a hole. It wouldn't stay in the bathroom. So it's called the basic kisi de parsai. That the soa or whatever, it wouldn't last there, it would go straight through. So it's more lenient. It doesn't really have a din of a bathroom because nothing would stay there. That's the basic kisi de parsai. So some of the poskim want to say that maybe our bathrooms, right, the Chazon Ish is mistaken about this, maybe our bathrooms are like basic kisi de parsai. Right, because our bathrooms also, the soa doesn't stay there for a while. It gets flushed down immediately after you use it. So therefore, maybe when somebody goes to the bathroom, there is no ruach ra concern these days, and you'd only have to wash your hands because of to make your hands clean physically. So therefore, one can actually wash in the bathroom, and that would be okay. The only reason why some poskim are not so happy with this comparison is that the basic kisi de parsai was something else. The basic kisi de parsai, it would go immediately. Our bathrooms, it stays there for a little bit, then you flush it down maybe a couple minutes later. So not all the poskim are so happy to make that comparison. Number 2, a heter that some of the poskim give is they say our bathrooms, they're used for other things, right? We have mirrors in the bathroom. People look at themselves in the bathroom. They brush their teeth in the bathroom. They do other things. So maybe a basic kisi is something that's miyuchad to using the bathroom. We use other things. We use the bathroom for other things. So maybe it doesn't have that same ruach ra. But once again, not all the poskim are so happy about that. He says, but it's called bathroom. That's what it's called. So therefore, maybe it should have ruach ra. Okay, so what are we saying right now? So we're saying that maybe somebody should be machmir, and after he uses the bathroom, maybe he shouldn't wash his hands using the bathroom sink, because maybe you lose. Maybe if you did that, you'd have to go and wash again outside. And then we're saying maybe we could be makel for these reasons that our bathrooms do not have ruach ra. A middle shita will be something that's quoted in the Chazon Ish. Shulchan also mentions this in the Tshuva. He has a great idea. He says the halacha is after you leave a bathroom, you wash your hands, and we're saying that you don't have to wash 3 times. That's not that Mishnah Berurah says that's not really the halacha. So he says a great idea. You wash in the bathroom using the bathroom sink, and while your hands are still wet, you leave the bathroom. So we look at it like you wash your hands outside the bathroom, and that would be okay. So that's like a middle shita. If somebody doesn't want to be machmir for the shita that you have to wash your hands out of the bathroom, Okay. Just a couple more points. There is the thing at the end here the Kitzur talks about. He talks about being makiz dam, a bloodletting. That after somebody lets blood, he has to go wash his hands. What Why? Why is that? Obviously, it's a ruach ra concern, right? Your hands are physically clean, like your hands are physically clean after you let blood. So it's a ruach ra concern, and it's actually because the Gemara Maseches Pesachim that the Shulchan Aruch quotes. I'll just quote it in the Lashon of Shulchan Aruch. He says somebody who lets blood and he doesn't wash his hands, he's going to be afraid for 7 days. Somebody who gets a haircut doesn't wash his hands, they'll be afraid for 3 days. Somebody who cuts his fingernails and doesn't wash his hands will be afraid for 1 day, and he won't know why he's afraid. These are all ruach ra concerns, right? All of those things, nothing to do with cleanliness, because just cutting your nails doesn't make your hands not clean. Obviously, it's a ruach ra concern. Therefore, you would need water. 3 times was a discussion, but you'd for sure need water. So Rosh Hashanah, he asks about, okay, we don't really have bloodlettings these days, but sometimes people, they donate blood, they get blood tests. Would that also be matzah and atila? So Rosh Hashanah does not think so, right? Because Rosh Hashanah says, we know what Chazal say. Chazal said that there's this sakana one goes about after he lets blood. We don't really understand it. We don't really understand ruach ra. It's not our right to apply this ruach ra idea in cases that Chazal don't talk about. So he's about that. He says you don't have to. Okay, shkoyach. Have a good day.